welcome or welcome back to my videos. My name is Kelsey and I make lots of bookish content on this channel, so if that is your vibe then please subscribe and stick around. But today I thought that it would be so fun to go over some of my favourite books that I have read so far this year. We're already midway through August. I am going to split this video into 3 separate categories, so I'm going to have romance, thrillers and fantasy books, and I've honestly had to narrow down because I've read so many good books this year and I'm so excited to share them all with you. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to show you my favourite book of the year and I'm so excited to talk about it. You might already be able to guess what it is if you've watched my videos before, but I don't know, I feel like there's a few options I could pick from right now. Also, I just want to apologise if the quality of this video is not the same as my other videos. I have managed to break my memory card and that is why I'm now filming it on my phone, and that's why I've got my silly little microphone, because the microphone quality isn't usually that great on my iPhone, and I have got 2 fans on me right now because it feels like 1,000,000 degrees in London. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, okay, let's start with romance because I feel like I have the most books in this section. And the book that we're going to start with is Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This was the first book that I have read by Carly Fortune and I loved it. It was actually recommended to me by one of my best friends, and oh my god, did she get it right with this recommendation, because I absolutely loved it so much. It actually made me cry at the end, and I feel like with a romance book it's quite hard to make you cry because usually they have like a happy ending, but something about this book just got me and I just really enjoyed it. I really loved that we had a bit of a dual timeline. So this is about 2 characters called Fern and Will, and they basically meet one day and then they kind of like separate. I won't go into it too much because I think it's better to go into books blind, but they kind of meet one day and then they really like each other and it doesn't work out, and then they agree to meet up later, and you kind of switched between them in the past and then them in the present. But I absolutely love that. I think it worked so well and I just adored the characters. They were so adorable and yeah, I just loved them. Honestly, it's so good. I read this on holiday and it was the most perfect holiday read because it's set at a lake. I feel like most of Carly's books are actually set in a lake because I now have since read more of her books and we're going to talk about some of those as well in a minute. But it's the most perfect holiday read because it's like a holiday setting. So I'd highly recommend this one. And it's come at no surprise that another one of my favourite books this year is also by Carly Fortune, and that one is Every Summer After. I adored this book. I just fall in love with her characters. I think the way that she writes her characters is really amazing and you just can't help but fall in love with them. She's also quite a lyrical writer as well. She's a very emotional writer and I absolutely love that, especially with like a romance book. I think it is really important to have other aspects to it because I love romance. It is honestly one of my favorite genres, but sometimes it can feel a little bit repetitive. But with Carly's books, they're all so different that they don't feel like that at all. So I read this one and it was 10 out of 10, like amazing. Just absolutely loved it. Again, her characters in this book were so lovable. This book we actually also read as part of my book club book. I think it was like June's book club book. What? I can't speak. June's book club. But why is that such a mouthful? You know what I mean. We all read it together and it was so much fun. I think all of us absolutely loved it. And then this is the first book in a kind of a universe that she's created. And the second book, it's upside down, is One Golden Summer. I was going to say by Carly Fortune, but we know that. I think this one is my favorite. Out of all of the 3 books of hers that I've read so far, this one is definitely my favorite. And it's also the thickest as well, like it's a bit bigger. You must read Every Summer After first because the characters are connected, and Every Summer After is set before One Golden Summer. So if you read One Golden Summer first, you're going to ruin the events that happen in Every Summer After. But I would highly recommend all of these books. Like every single one of them is a really good time, a sad time kind of, but also a really good time. Do you think that there are so many relatable aspects to her characters as well that I think you will find something relatable in at least one of them? And I would really recommend them all for a good summer read because they're all set by a lake, a different lake actually. I think I just absolutely love her writing. I think it's fantastic. So highly recommend these books. And then another one of my favorite romances that I've read this year is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I feel like this is a bit of an unpopular opinion because there's a lot of people out there on BookTok and Bookstagram that don't like this book, but I really loved it. I think again the characters were so lovable, and I think some of the things that people didn't like about this book is that it's quite sad and it is sad, but I think that adds so much to the story. It's about a topic that is very real and a lot of people have to experience. And I think that Abby Jimenez does it. I mean, I've never experienced this particular thing myself, but I would say that she does write it in such a relatable way and such a realistic way as well. I won't spoil it too much, but in this book, we have two characters who are long distance, and I think that the way she writes that part of the story is so realistic. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we're just going to fly to each other every single weekend. It was like, okay, you know, let's be realistic about this. Like, we don't have a lot of money, and it just felt really real to me, and I really liked that. Just again, I love Abby Jimenez's writing. I just feel like she's such a fun writer, but she also writes romances that aren't just romances. Like, there's always something else about them that just adds to the story. So yeah, I love this one. I don't know if you've read it, let me know in the comments like what you thought of it, because I actually really liked it, but I know that there's so many people who didn't, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. And then I've got a slightly different romance this time, but this is The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Now, I feel like I'm a bit late to the party with this one because most people in the book community have already read this book, but I loved it. I can totally see the hype. Again, it's a romance where there's a little bit more to it than it just being a romance, and in this case we have a magical apartment. I'm not going to say too much more because I do think it's such a fun, easy read. I just loved that it had a little bit of something else to the story with the magic apartment. Like, it just felt really like magical and lovey-dovey. This one is definitely more of a light-hearted read than some of the other books that I've talked about in this video already. I think sometimes that is what you need. I wouldn't say that the writing is absolutely perfect. Like, sometimes it did feel a little bit almost repetitive in a way, but I just loved this book. I feel like it's such a good, what do they call it? You know, when you read a book and then you need like a filler book in between. But what is that? It's got a name. Palette cleanser. This is a good palette cleanser book when you just need something lighthearted and fun. Pick up this one. And I've saved the best of last, and I've got a big series that we're going to talk about in the romance section. And I'll give you a second to guess what that series is going to be. My God, these are so heavy. The Magnolia Parks series. I'm going to have to put this down because they're so heavy. This series is brilliant. Now, I know that most people can't get behind what happens in the first book because obviously it is a trope that a lot of people just can't get over, but you have to persevere with the series because the first book is not the best book in the series. Obviously, I feel like that happens quite a lot, and you really do have to stick with it because it makes so much sense as you get through the series. The first book is kind of just like a taster into what's coming, and then obviously you've got, I have actually done a video on the Magnolia Parks reading order and how I think that you should read it on my channel already, so go and check out that video. I'll pop a link to it in the description and probably somewhere above here as well. But I do think you have to persevere with the series because it is so incredible and it gets so much better the further you go. I highly recommend it. I think this is one of my 6-star reads of the year. Not this book in particular, but the series as a whole, because it is just so incredible. And it is one of those series that I do think about quite often and I do find myself coming back to. And yeah, at some point, I really want to reread these books and annotate them because the way that Jessa Hastings writes is so lyrical and so beautiful. Like, there are so many quotes in this that I just want to remember for the rest of my life. I will say that with her writing, it does take a little bit of getting used to because it's not just your typical, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it almost feels like you are reading the characters' thoughts and you're kind of living it through the characters. You're not sort of like a third party, like looking on, what do they call it? Like the fourth wall. I don't know if that's right, actually. You know what I mean? Like, you are the characters. You feel what they feel. It's very emotional. It's very harrowing, especially sort of as you get to kind of into the dark. It definitely, I mean, this is chunky, okay? But there are definitely topics in here that are very sad. And I would, again, check trigger warnings before you decide to read this series because there are some really big things that happen and it is quite sad. 10 out of 10. Absolutely love it. Favorite series. Well, is it my favorite series ever? I don't know, but it's definitely up there. God tier series for sure. Okay, now let's move on to thrillers. I only have a couple of recommendations here, so we'll probably move through this quite quickly. My favorite thriller that I have read this year is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. Lisa Jewell, I think, is definitely one of my favorite thriller authors because she is so good at getting a plot twist right. You know, one that just doesn't feel predictable. She's got so many other books that I've loved. This one is definitely up there with my favorites. This thriller actually made me cry. Can you believe it? I've never had a thriller that has made me cry before, but it was so sad. And that's what made it so good. Honestly, if a book can make me cry, it is an instant 5 stars. So this was a 10 out of 10. I was honestly gripped from the first page reading this book. Like, I just loved it so much. And there are so many plot twists in this book as well. Like, you will be so shook because you will think you know where this book is going, but you will not know, and you will be so shocked at the end when you find out what actually happened. But yeah, this book is really, really good. Top thriller of the year for sure. I don't have a physical copy of this one because I read it on my Kindle, but the second favorite thriller book of the year is Ward D by Frida McFadden. I wasn't surprised that I loved this book because it's got such great reviews, and I think it is definitely up there with most people's favorite Frida books. So it was no surprise to me that I really liked this book. It's definitely very creepy. Like, don't read it at nighttime because I was scared at points reading this, and the plot twists again are absolutely wild. Like, you won't know where it is going until you've read it, and your jaw is going to be on the floor. Like, it is so wild. And I just loved every single second. I think this one would be such a good one to add to your autumn TBR just because it's so creepy. I feel like that is a good autumn thriller book. If it's really creepy, definitely read it in autumn, I think. Okay, now let's move on to fantasy books. Now, I have a few series to recommend because it's quite difficult to pick just one, because I feel like with most fantasy books, they're part of a series. So we're going to talk about some series. And the first one that I'm going to mention is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I personally feel like this series is severely underhyped. It is so good. The first book does start a little bit slow, and I think that is what puts most people off, but you kind of have to read the rest of the series to understand. Like, it's an urban fantasy, okay? So there's a lot more world building in the first book than maybe what some people expect or like. And I think that's why some people don't really like it. But honestly, it's so worth it if you can power through. It can be a little bit complicated, I think, at the beginning. It does all make sense later. It definitely gives like a bit of a murder mystery / whodunit kind of vibe, which I think is quite unique for fantasy series. I feel like you kind of expect that more in a thriller. I think that's what I loved about it, because it did feel so unique. Like, I definitely haven't read before or since a series like Crescent City. And can we just talk about Hunt Athalar, please? Because oh my god, he is also a very underhyped book boyfriend. Like, he's just amazing and I just love him so much. The third book, The House of Flame and Shadow, is definitely my favorite of the series. There is a bit of a crossover in this book, which I'm not going to talk too much about because honestly, I don't want it to be spoiled for anyone. And it is so well done. Oh, I'm just so excited even thinking about it. Like, it's just so good. Honestly, you need to read Crescent City. Now, Crowns of Nyaxia 100% needs to get a mention in this video. I haven't actually finished the series yet. I'm now currently reading the latest release, which is called The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk, but it definitely needs to be mentioned because it's 100% one of my favorite series. Technically, I reread the first and second books this year because I actually read them for the first time last year, I believe, or maybe the year before, and I absolutely loved them. Now, when I read them the first time, I didn't realize that there were some novellas. So this series is basically split into 3 duologies with some standalones. So there's only the first 2 duologies are actually out right now. I believe the next duology is going to be released next August. Carissa literally just did an announcement for that. You can only read the first 2, and then in between books 1 and 2 there's a novella, and that's called Six Scorched Roses. Now, that needs to get a mention because I believe this is the best novella I have read this year. It is so flipping good. It's a lot slower paced, I think, than the House of Serpent and no, that's not right. The House of Night and the Wings of, what is it called? The Serpent and the Wing, that's it. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Sorry, the titles of these books are so long. Like, it can get a little bit confusing. But that is honestly one of the best novellas I have ever read. Like, it's so romantic. It's so beautiful. It can be read as a standalone. Like, you don't have to have read the first book in the series or any of the other books to understand it. The novellas read as standalones. So you don't technically have to read them in a specific order, but there is a recommended order that you should read them in. And when I finished the last book, I do plan to make a video to explain the reading order for the series because I think it can be quite complicated. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's actually really easy to understand like once you know it. But yeah, I needed to talk about this series. It's basically a universe of gods, vampires, and humans. I don't need to say anymore because already it just sounds so good, and I know that you guys will love it. I'm sure most of you have already probably started reading it or have read some of the series anyway, but if you haven't, then I'd highly recommend it. It's so good. Okay, and now we have made it to the end of my list of recommendations, and that means now we can talk about my favorite book that I've read this year, and I have been dying to talk about it. I think I've already mentioned it a few times across my channel already, so if you guess what it is, then well done. But my favorite book that I've read this year is Diabound by Sable Sorensen. Let's just take a moment because it is amazing. Honestly, I just loved it so much. I think I would honestly rate this 6 stars, and I don't say that very often. Like 100% it is a god tier book. Like it is incredible. If you take any books from this video to add to your TBR, please make it this one because you will not regret it. Like from page 1, I was absolutely hooked. The one thing I will say is do not read the blurb, okay? Because the blurb actually has spoilers. All you need to know is that it's going to give you the same feeling that Fourth Wing gives you. It reminds me quite a bit of Fourth Wing because we have got that kind of like academy setting, and we also bond to animals. I don't know if we can really count dragons as animals, but in Diabound we get, well, I say we as if I live in the book. I do not, but the characters get bonded to dire wolves. So it's kind of got the same vibes where you like bond to something like a creature. And it is just so good. Again, this book had so many wild plot twists, and it's just, there's like multiple layers to the story, okay? It's not just like the characters are doing this and then this happens and then this happens. Like there's multiple layers to the story, and I think that makes for an incredible book. So that is my 6-star read. That is my favorite book of the year. I don't want to give too much away because I think it is so much better to go into the book blind, but you will not regret it, okay? And it is actually being traditionally published. It is going to be a series, and the second book, Fury Bound, is now been pushed back to be released next year because it's getting traditionally published. But yeah, if you made it to the end of this video, then thank you so much for yapping about books with me. I would love to hear what your favorite books of the year have been so far. I'm always wanting to add more books to my want to read list, even though I'm on a book bind ban, but a girl can dream. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.